Habits 365 Conscious Minds podcast.
What's up, guys, and welcome back to the Conscious Minds podcast. I'm your host, Chris Holbert, and thankfully we are joined with my co-host, who is the founder and CEO of Habits 365, Eli Zide. Eli, thanks for joining today.
Hey guys, good to see you all again. Today we have a very special guest on our Conscious Minds podcast who is a author of several novels and nonfiction projects for mostly children and young adults. Lakita Wilson, it's awesome to have you today.
Hey, I'm Lakita. I am from the DC area. Basically, write a lot of like nonfiction projects, a lot of Black history stuff, and now I'm getting into writing novels.
That's awesome. So where do you get the information and kind of the background of some of the novels you write?
So, with the nonfiction projects, honestly, the publisher just they will come to me with like an idea, and they'll be like, "Hey, we have this subject. Do you want to write about it?" And if it's like something good, like the Tuskegee Airmen, or like most recently, the Black Lives Matter movement, I'm always like, yeah, because researching a lot of those topics always helps me when I go to write like fiction. So they pretty much give me like an outline, like, hey, we want like these topics to be talked about. I research it, I write it. But the fiction is just like a whole nother ball game. That's like I have to go like somewhere deep in my head and like
difficult,
pull out all my childhood trauma, like, get good like story ideas. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. All the creative genius needs to come out at some point, right?
Yeah, seriously. So I saw you have a new book coming out in I think 6 days called What Does Black Lives Matter? So obviously that's such a huge, important topic. What sort of made you write about that?
Well, that's another one of those instances where the publisher just sort of asked me to do it. And to be perfectly honest with you, I was like, so no one's gonna call like Jason Reynolds or like Lamar Burton? Like, why?
Yeah.
Like, why they pick me? So I was like super honored to write it. But I just, like when they gave me the topic, this was like one of the few times where they didn't give me like this really strict like outline. Like, okay, chapter 1 is going to say this, chapter 2 is going to say this. And so I had to think about like what children should know about the Black Lives Matter movement. And a lot of like, even when I see like videos on social media of like, moments of like police brutality and injustice against Black people, like it's super traumatizing. So I know like as an adult, if it's super traumatizing, it's going to be like
more for kids.
Yeah, like horrible, like for kids. But it is like, I feel like it's important information. It's just like in the way that you package it. And so I made sure that when like I put those chapters together, it was, hey, yes, we are going to talk about those hard moments, but we're going to talk about like ways that that the Black Lives Matter movement is extending the the activism. So like it isn't just about ending police brutality, getting justice for Black people, but part of that justice is making sure that Black joy exists. So like there's a whole chapter based on just Black future, like our futures, not just, oh, we're walking down the street and we're murdered, but how do we incorporate art and let our art be seen, or how do we make sure that we're able to buy real estate in good areas, like in areas of like high value and things like that. So yeah, I tried to
Yeah, it's super important. And
Yeah.
this actually like relates to this movie I just saw. I don't know if you've seen this movie. It's called Candyman. It's kind of like a psychological thriller horror by Jordan Peele. He wrote it, but he honestly really glorifies within the horror of the whole film
Yeah.
how kind of black people have been perpetrated to buy houses in the ghetto and kind of got pushed and
Hmm.
had to almost had their hand forced to be living in those areas because it was almost like marketed to them that, oh, this is nice cheap living, you can live here for very cheap. And
Well,
so
yeah,
what
I
do you
mean,
like
and
think about
redlining.
his creative art with that?
Yeah, they were sort of forced into those areas. It's like,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
this is the only place you can live. You can't live in our areas. So yeah.
Yeah, it's just like I just think those types of films and like the book that you're writing as well are so important to kind of spread the word and like spread that message that there has been a lot of division and obviously racism did exist and all these things have
Mhm.
led to kind of the empowerment of now the black people of color.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I know you've been writing for a long time because you don't just get into writing and just happen to be good at it, you know? So when did you kind of start your writing career and how did you kind of launch it and put it into fruition?
Okay. So I actually haven't been professionally writing that long. So that's why I'm like kind of laughing a little bit because like I sort of like wrote some like really dramatic, ridiculous stuff when I was like 4 that my mother sort of kept in a file cabinet. But like um I just I don't know. I didn't see any black writers growing up. So maybe one, but I definitely didn't think it was a career path. Like I didn't think it was anything possible. I didn't even know how, like even if I wanted to do it, like that didn't seem possible. So I taught for like a really long time. And then one day I was like, oh, I'm just gonna like try something out. And I thought like I was just gonna put it up on Amazon or something. And what happened, like it's like a weird string of events because like um I have run businesses before, so like I kind of like come from a business background, and I knew like if I wanted to like market this self-published book, I would have to like have a platform. So I started like with Instagram,
Hmm.
and I built up a following there. Um, and I kept saying like, "Oh, I'm gonna have this book coming out," which honestly is not the way you go about it, but it's like trial and error when you don't know what you're doing.
Of
And
course.
a publisher, and I paid for like this illustration of like one of the characters that I didn't write yet. Like, and a publisher from Harper, I'm not publisher, an editor from Harper Collins was like, "Oh, you have this thing coming out." Like, she was intrigued by the illustration, and she was like,
Hmm.
"Show me your manuscript," and it was trash. I mean, like, I sent them like something so embarrassing that I'm just like, "Oh my god, that's somewhere out there somewhere." Like someone sat in their office and was like, "This is just a hot flaming mess." So
Yeah, get it out of my face.
yeah, so she was like, "No," and then after she said no, I was like, "Oh, but people don't have like HarperCollins knocking on their door, like so, like maybe I should actually like try to do it that way." But I wasn't good, so um I tried to like I talked to like some developmental editors, but like I still wasn't good. And then finally I was like, I'm just gonna go to school because I mean, if I don't know how to write, then hopefully school will teach me how to write. And so
It's
it
yeah,
did.
gotta lead me down the right path.
Yeah, like I had good ideas, but the execution was horrible. So some people are like really into MFAs and some people aren't. Like it's super like you're on one side or the other. I believe in it if you don't, if like you want to do something, you just don't really know the exact, like you don't have all the skills.
Hmm.
If you're in a good program, like they'll help you with those skills. And they
Right.
did. They were definitely like, hey, just come here and learn and like learn what you're supposed to learn. Like don't try to get a book deal right now, just relax, just work on your stuff. And I definitely did not listen to them at all. Like I was like, excuse me. Like every time I would learn something new, I would be like trying to break into the publishing industry. So while my classmates were relaxing for like 2 years, they weren't relaxing. Everyone was struggling in the program, but they didn't have that extra like,
Not as much pressure.
yeah, like I was having advisors, like our writing instructors saying, "Hey, this is what you need to fix," and I also was having like agents saying, "Yeah, no." So
Yeah, that happens. I mean, people's artwork isn't for everyone. Not everyone's going to agree with how you are, but it's always good to get that extra work in, go to school, and get the skills and everything you need
I
to,
think so. Yeah, I mean, because like a lot of the things that they were teaching me, and I even went into the program with like one idea. Like I didn't even think the fact that like I'm gonna have multiple books out is weird because I was like, oh, if I just do like this one idea, then um success. I'm going to Hollywood. Because that was like my whole thing too. I kept thinking like one good idea and like someone's
Automatic.
gonna like
like a one-hit wonder.
yeah, and then someone's gonna like publish it and it's gonna turn into a movie and then I'm just gonna be sashaying down the red carpet. And that's
Yeah,
completely unhinged. So
it's good to dream big, though. It's good to
Yep.
dream big.
I know, but geez, the publishing industry just had a lot to like. I was just the mosquito of the publishing industry for like 2 straight years. Like, please, someone. And finally, so this is what happens when you are a mosquito. I would just get to know different people, and like honestly, the Instagram page, because I had a following, that was sort of opening doors where people were like, well, how did you get those followers? Like, what, like, can you teach other writers? So I was going to conferences and like meeting people and stuff. And so what ended up happening was I was like making connections. And then one day,
Mm.
still couldn't get an agent, but a book packager called, and the book packager is actually owned by Warner Brothers.
Mm.
And
Oh,
so when I got like when I got the email, they were like, "Oh, hi, you want to audition for this thing?" And I was like, "What is that?" Like,
yeah.
I was like, "This is fake." And then, but it was real, and I auditioned for months. And to be honest, like I still wasn't that good. Like like she was sort of like, "Okay, you need to fix this. You need to fix this."
Mm.
And because I was open to like, constructive criticism,
Yeah.
they hired me, and that enabled me to get an agent. And then the agent started looking at my original work. And so all of that harassment, like not like big time harassment, but like,
Yeah,
simple harassment that I did for like 2 years, it all like
Paid off.
built up. Yeah. And the agent just sold off everything, like everything that wasn't nailed down. She was like, all right, okay, I'm going to do this deal for this book packager project. I'm going to sell off your original work. Oh, you have this idea for this nonfiction project. I'm going to sell that off too. And I've been telling her like, oh, I don't know. Like some people write a book and then they don't sell anything for like another 5 years or something. And I want to work. So
yeah,
I want to work for the publisher too. So she ended up getting me gigs where like the publisher comes up with the idea and I write it. So it's going
that's
to work out.
cool.
Yeah. So
Gives you
I've
that
been like,
creative freedom, like kind of put your own flair into the mix.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah. It's the best of both worlds because I can like, I can sit back and like come up with ideas on my own and like sort of, yeah, like it's like the best of both worlds doing it that way because I have like my original work that I can sort of take my time with. And then I have like publishers sort of coming up with ideas and a lot of the times like outlining it for me. And I just have to write it, which isn't, it isn't as long as like coming up with your own stuff.
Yep.
And that in that way, I can just keep working and have
Yeah.
things come out. Yeah.
Do you think that takes away from your kind of creative freedom, like having a publisher?
No, because I still come up with like I still come up with my own original stuff too.
Yeah.
And I
Okay.
don't really take projects that I don't believe in. And trust me, like I've had certain things where I'm like, that's not okay. Like, I don't want my name on that. You're gonna get like tomatoes thrown at me. So I only take things that I super believe in. Like when I got the Black Lives Matter project, and at the same time, they asked me to do what is Black Lives Matter and who is Colin Kaepernick at the same
Mhm.
time. And I was like,
Ah, yeah.
ooh, it's all like gelling together. So I got this master course on social justice in like a matter of 3 months.
Yeah, right, right.
Yeah, right.
Gotcha.
So no, like especially with nonfiction, because nonfiction is like the facts, like it's
Mhm.
not, and any like creative juice that comes out of that really is the writer. So the way that it's written is all me. So like they'll help, you know, fine tune it, but they hire, I know my mom was asking me like, well, if they come up with ideas, why don't they write it? And I'm like, Mom, like everyone has their own job, but they literally hire me to put like the flavor or
Yeah,
the, give it
put
something
it all
that makes,
together. Yeah.
yeah, that makes the reader want to read it. So no, and on some level, like I like for people to, to tell me what to do on some level because
To give you more
I
of a
don't,
direction,
yeah, like,
organization. Yeah.
some writers are like, hey, this is my vision. I'm an artiste. I have to do this. And I'm like, all right, but I also want it to be good. I want someone to tell me if I'm like going
Yeah,
off,
yeah.
I'm like derailing here. So
And you
I
probably
feel
learned from
like,
like trial and error too. Like when you were doing it before on your own, it was probably so much harder now that you have kind of that guidance, the structure that kind of lets your
yeah,
creative freedom go to work. It's probably that much easier.
that's terrible. Cause I mean, I was my writer and editor. I was like, ooh, this is good. Then I would read it and be like, ooh, this is good. It was bad. So it's someone saying, hey, this might not work, but like maybe if we go in this direction, and then I that gets my wheel spinning, and it ends up being a lot better.
Yeah,
So
and they're not gonna guide you in the wrong direction either. They have their vision too. You're just the one kind of putting it all together. You're like the cook. They'll give you the
yeah,
ingredients, but now you're the one that's actually gonna create the whatever you want out of it.
yeah,
What is like your creative space that you get into when it comes to writing? Like, do you have a certain time of the day you start writing, or do you
ooh,
have like a certain routine?
yeah, yeah, I do. Yeah, and this is actually like my favorite topic because like the reason why I'm able to like crank out stuff pretty quickly is like I have a full-time job. Like it doesn't seem like it because like I'm always home, but like I'm on faculty at a college, so I have a job. I have to like teach my students and grade and stuff like that. So I had to literally like treat writing like a part-time job where I
Mhm.
gave myself hours. I cannot deviate from those hours. So like I would get up at like 5 in the morning every morning, um for it's this thing on Twitter called 5 a.m. Writers Club. And I would just follow that hashtag and I would be like, hey guys, I'm up, and do like some funny like GIF or something. And like, and I
Yeah,
would write for like hours, like, well, not hours, but like 5 a.m. to like 8 a.m. every
yeah,
day. Then as I started to get work, that that sort of spiraled into like 5 a.m. to 4 p.m. because my brain just stops working at 4 p.m. I don't care what happens. I
I think
cannot
with all of us.
I cannot like string a sentence together after 4 p.m. So whatever happens, I stop working 4 p.m. But I would do it like every day. Well, it started off like 3 days a week, then it like cranked up to five, then it sort of became 7 days a week. I don't recommend that because it like
it'll wear on you.
yeah, like, and then you're just like outside. What does that look like? Like, I literally was like cranking out books for like a year straight. Like, this pandemic has been, like horrible, just, with all of the, like deaths and just people in hospitals and the lasting effects, like the long term effects of COVID-19. But it did give me time to just like sit in the house, and no one was pressuring me to leave the house. They were like,
Yeah,
oh,
right.
let's go to brunch. Like, no, they were, everyone was in. So I could go from like my bed to my couch. And I have a writing space. Like, this is supposed to be like my writing office. I bought like this nice desk. Like that was like one of the first things I bought with like one of my publishing checks. I was like, ooh, a nice desk and a chair. I literally sit in the corner of my couch from like 5 a.m. to 4 p.m. every day. And you can tell I sit there because it's like a body outline. Like I'm like, ah, like you see me. There's a faded spot on the couch where I sit every single day, and it doesn't matter like what kind of space I set up, like, nothing. I just sit on the
It's
couch and I
habitual.
write. But I've gotten a little unhinged with it because like it started off where I had to be on the couch. Then I have to have like this writing blanket. Like basically I look like okay, like Charlie in the Chocolate Factory when like the grandfather's in his bed and he's like, oh, I'm in his bed. So like I have to I have to have this like quilted blanket, reading socks, like these really thick reading socks. My fireplace has to be on right in front of me where I can see the fire.
Ooh,
Next
that's
to me is
cozy.
like this heater that like warms like the side of me. I'm wearing these like my little Beats by Dre, like to block out the sound. Um, and like my dog is sitting next to me. But I'm like, my kids walk past and they're like, "What are you doing? Like, do you move? Like, what's happening?" But if I'm missing the reading socks, I'm just like my focus is off. If I'm missing a blanket, like if someone like decided to wrap themselves in my blanket, I'm really angry. I'm like, "Give me my blanket back." But um, it's I've gotten really bizarre about needing every little thing. Um,
But it's habitual, like it's something you do like every single time you write. So I mean, it's not a terrible thing.
right. It's not like, right. I'm not like, shoplifting before I go write and that gives me inspiration. Like like I'm just, you know, being very, very cozy. And I drink a Pepsi every day and I'm trying to cut back on that because I mean, I don't know. I only buy the mini cans, but if I don't have that Pepsi in the morning, like it's done. I'm not writing anything. Kind of like I don't like coffee. It smells weird to me. It's like one little mini can of Pepsi and I'm good. Like, yeah.
It gives you that little boost you need. I
It
mean,
does. At this
It's
point,
necessary.
yeah, at this point I can't drink sodas outside of that because Pepsi literally tastes like work now. Like work. If I had a Pepsi somewhere else, I would be like, okay, I gotta go write. Like,
yeah, it puts you into that headspace that's like, no, this isn't familiar. I don't want
yeah.
that. You need it only when you work. It's like your cup of coffee.
It literally is. Like I'm like, ew, I don't even like the way this tastes anymore, but I have to do it. Otherwise, I'm not gonna just kickstart this like whole writing thing. I'm not gonna do it. So
I
I
mean,
don't
whatever works, right? I mean, everyone has their kind of routine or like their go-to thing that they do every time they either like write a book or play
yeah.
in a sports event. There's always certain things that you habitually do to kind of like get yourself ready for whatever else it is you're doing. So,
Yeah.
one of my kind of last questions for you is, like, what habits have you developed that kind of like helped like propel your career, and what do you wish to see yourself doing in like 2 or 3 years?
Okay. So I think like the biggest thing is routine. I mean, honestly, that like sometimes people like will do things for like 3 days and then like they'll put it down for a month. I stick to a routine.
The Pepsi,
Um, I'm right. My Pepsi. Um, I
Booty socks.
I um I network, but I try to like network in a way that's not annoying to people. Like I'm like, okay, like I'll sort of inch my way into something, but then I'll like pull back so that it's, I'm not being like a social climber. I'm just, I try to make connections. And then like once I work with a publisher, I work really hard for them. And I think that's important too, because sometimes people get to where they need to be and they're like, haha, I'm here. Like someone break out the champagne. And I'm like, no, like I'm gonna show them why they're gonna want to keep me forever. I'm gonna come in before deadline. I'm gonna be like, oh, what do you need me to do? Okay, like give me the page count. I'm gonna give you what you're looking for. And when you ask me to change something, like I'm gonna do it if I believe in it, you have
Yep.
to, sometimes you have to push back on things that you feel like really strongly about, but you can't be like, I no, I'm not gonna do that because this is me and I'm the talent here. Like you have to really be like, well, the character calls for this, so maybe like let's talk about it. So you just have to find ways to be professional in this industry, but also like super flexible, but not flexible when it comes to um, like your routine, um, enhancing your skill set, and really like just, I know this is gonna be like super cliche, but like believing in yourself.
Mhm.
Because that's the other thing about this whole thing is like before you like get on, like before they you sell your first book or whatever, this is all like a really wild idea. Like this is everyone's like, oh, you're writing a book. All right, like whatever. And so like you have to be the one who like believes in yourself, no matter how ridiculous like you look to everyone else. And when you finally like prove yourself right and prove everyone else, prove to everyone else like, yeah, I'm gonna do this thing, you have to keep up that momentum.
Oh, absolutely. And do you still believe in yourself that you're going to be having that one book that's just going to make you run the red carpet still, or is that still something you see
I'm getting on
yourself
that
doing?
red carpet. Like, okay, so that's the thing. Now that I see the behind the scenes thing, I understand like how it all works. And like that idea wasn't that far fetched because like I have friends now who like what happens is when they sell your book, they don't like it doesn't really stop there. They take like the same book and they sell like the movie rights, they sell the TV rights, they sell the foreign rights. So
Yep.
it's completely possible. So I mean, I'm getting
Yeah,
on
I mean,
here
J.K.
and
Rowling is probably one of the greatest examples. I mean, she just created Harry Potter and then boom,
Mhm.
there's
right.
her, you know?
But it's so many things that you see out there have started with books that I didn't really know. Like I was like, oh, like even the movie Everything, like when I got hired by that book packager, I got to go to like WarnerMedia. And first of all, like because I'm not from New York, like so I go to WarnerMedia and I'm like snapping a picture of the friend's couch, like with my phone, like ooh, like we'll take a picture of you next to it. You don't have to like sneak. But I didn't even understand like a lot of the books that were on shelves like started there. It started with like a book packager saying, "Oh, we have this idea. Let's go hire a writer."
Mm,
And then they take that idea and that manuscript, they sell it to a publisher, and then a lot of times they buy it back and pipeline it into like a movie um or like a TV show. So like
mm.
once I saw that, like once the curtain got pulled back, I was like, oh
So this is how it works.
yeah. I was like, I just need to have like a good
These
agent.
connections,
Yeah.
these little intermediaries to kind of facilitate my work.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, I'm hoping for the best for you. I'm
Yeah.
excited to see what this book you have in store that's coming out. And I mean, you probably have so much in the package, you know. Do you have any like reserved books that you have that haven't been released yet, or do you have any like thoughts about something else you want to write?
So the scary thing is I'm like I hate to even say it. Like I'm like booked up until like 2024, I think.
Wow.
Yeah. And so like it's yeah, something like that. I may have like some room for 2024, but that's like the next thing because I sold all those books, but I'm still on the phone with my agent, like, oh, I'm not gonna have anything. Like, what's gonna happen? Like, all this is like once everything's like out on the shelves, I won't have anything. So like now I'm in that process now of like trying to be creative again and like come up with new ideas and like build this schedule of all right, like what do I write next? Because I and having my agent sort of go to the editors and publishers that I've worked with and say like, hey, like you guys have any other special projects that you want her to do in the like in between her original work. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to like stack it up again, but we'll see what happens. Like we'll see if
No,
that happens
Yeah,
again.
totally. I mean, I'm excited for you. I mean, you're doing what you love, and that's all you could
Yeah.
ever ask for at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Lakita, it was so nice to have you on. I mean, you made this podcast very enjoyable. This episode's been great.
Thank you.
And if you want to tell everyone kind of your Instagram handle or where they can find you, where they can find your next book.
Yeah, on Instagram, I'm Lakita Writes. And I'm Lakita Writes on Twitter too. I have What is Black Lives Matter coming out next Tuesday. And I have a special hip hop project coming out in a year.
Oh,
And
snap.
I know. And like they have not announced it yet. And I'm like, please just announce it. And I have a Colin Kaepernick comes out in May, and a middle grade novel that is like that's like my favorite project. Like that's coming out in July. So
awesome.
follow
Hey,
me.
we're looking forward to it too. I mean,
Yeah. No, it was great having you on our Conscious Minds podcast today.
Thanks. Yeah, it was great.
yeah, and we'll see you next time, guys. The next episode will be coming out next Sunday, so hope to see you then.